Ji-won Park stood at the entrance of Hamilton Academy and took a deep breath. The building looked huge and expensive. Tall white columns stood at the front door. Everything looked clean and perfect. She looked down at her uniform. It was the right uniform, but it was old. Her mother had bought it from a second-hand store. The white shirt had a small stain near the bottom that would not come out no matter how many times they washed it. Her skirt was a bit faded. Her shoes were old and the leather was cracked in places. Other students walked past her. They all looked perfect. Their uniforms were new and pressed. They carried expensive bags and talked on the latest phones. Some of them stared at Ji-won as they passed. She heard whispers but could not make out the words. A group of girls walked by and one of them looked at Ji-won's shoes and whispered something to her friends. They all laughed. Ji-won pulled her old backpack higher on her shoulder. The backpack had patches on it where holes had formed. She had sewn them herself. It was the best she could do. She walked through the front door and down the hallway. The floors were so shiny she could see her reflection. Everything smelled clean and new. She found her classroom and walked inside. The room went quiet. Everyone turned to look at her. Ji-won felt her face get hot, but she kept her head up. She walked to the teacher's desk. A tall woman with perfect hair and expensive clothes stood there. She looked Ji-won up and down with cold eyes. "You must be the scholarship student," the woman said. Her voice was not kind. "I am Ms. Victoria Whitmore. I teach history here." "Yes, ma'am. I am Ji-won Park. It is nice to meet you," Ji-won said politely. Ms. Whitmore did not smile. "We will see about that. Take the seat in the back corner." Ji-won walked to the back of the room. Every student watched her. She sat down and put her backpack under the desk. The chair next to her was empty. Actually, the two chairs next to her were empty even though every other seat was taken. Ms. Whitmore began the class. She talked about the rules and what she expected. Then she stopped and looked at Ji-won. "Ms. Park, please stand up," Ms. Whitmore said. Ji-won stood up slowly. Her heart was beating fast. "Class, we have a scholarship student with us this year. Miss Park, please tell everyone about yourself. Where did you go to school before this? What do your parents do?" Ji-won felt everyone staring at her. "I went to public school before this. My father works in construction. My mother cleans houses." Some students giggled. Ms. Whitmore's mouth made a tight line. "I see. And you are here on a full scholarship, correct?" "Yes, ma'am." "That means the school is paying for you to be here because your family cannot afford it. That is very generous of Hamilton Academy, is it not?" "Yes, ma'am." "I am very grateful." "Good. You should be grateful. Now I expect you to work twice as hard as everyone else. You need to prove you deserve to be here. The other students have been preparing for Hamilton Academy their whole lives. You are behind, way behind. Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am. I will be giving you extra homework every night to help you catch up to our standards. You will turn it in at the start of every class." "Yes, ma'am." "You may sit down now." Ji-won sat down quickly. Her hands were shaking a little. She put them in her lap so no one would see. The class went on, but Ji-won had trouble paying attention. She could feel people looking at her and whispering. When the lunch bell rang, everyone rushed out of the classroom. Ji-won took her time packing her things. She did not want to walk out with everyone. When she finally left the room, the hallway was full of students. They all seemed to know where to go and who to talk to. Ji-won did not know anyone. She walked to the cafeteria. The room was huge and full of round tables. Groups of students sat together laughing and talking. Ji-won got her lunch from the free lunch line. Some students in the regular line pointed at her and whispered. She pretended not to notice. She looked around for a place to sit. Every table seemed full. Finally, she saw an empty table in the corner. She walked over and sat down alone. She opened her lunch and ate slowly. The food was actually good, much better than her old school. She tried to focus on that instead of the lonely feeling in her chest. After a few minutes, a girl with red hair walked over. She had a kind face and smiled at Ji-won. "Hi, I am Emma. Do you want some company?" Before Ji-won could answer, another girl grabbed Emma's arm. "Emma, what are you doing?" "Come sit with us. I just thought, come on, now." Emma looked at Ji-won with an apologetic face and then walked away with her friend. Ji-won went back to eating. She was used to being alone. It was okay. She decided to spend the rest of lunch in the library. The library was beautiful with tall shelves full of books. Ji-won found a quiet corner and sat down. She pulled out her old phone. It was not a smartphone, just a basic phone that could only call and text. She had 3 messages. The first was from her mother asking if her first day was going well. The second was from her father telling her to work hard. The third message made her pause. It said, "When are you coming back? We need you in the lab. The results from Trial C are ready." Ji-won typed back quickly. "I will be there tonight. Same time." She put her phone away and pulled out a book to read. The library was peaceful. For a little while, she could forget about Ms. Whitmore and the staring students. When the bell rang, Ji-won went back to class. Ms. Whitmore was already there, standing by her desk with her arms crossed. The class filled up and everyone sat down. Ms. Whitmore started teaching about colonial history. Ji-won listened carefully and took notes. For homework, I want a 5-page essay on the impact of colonization on indigenous populations. It is due on Friday, Ms. Whitmore announced. Everyone groaned. Ms. Whitmore smiled. "Miss Park, you will write 10 pages. You need the extra practice," Ji-won just nodded. "Yes, ma'am." That night, Ji-won stayed up late working on the essay. She was tired, but she did not complain. She had been tired before. This was nothing new. She typed on her old laptop, stopping only to check her research sources. When she finally finished at 2 in the morning, the essay was 15 pages long. She could not help it. The topic was interesting and she had a lot to say. The next day in class, Ji-won turned in her essay. Ms. Whitmore took it and flipped through the pages. Her eyes narrowed. "This is 15 pages, she said. "Yes, ma'am. I got carried away with the topic." "I hope that is okay." Ms. Whitmore did not respond. She put the essay on her desk and started teaching. Ji-won thought everything was fine. She was wrong. The next day, Ms. Whitmore asked Ji-won to stay after class. When all the other students left, Ms. Whitmore held up the essay. "Did you write this yourself?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am." "I find that hard to believe. This is graduate-level writing. Someone like you could not possibly write this well." Ji-won felt like she had been slapped. "I did write it, ma'am. I can show you my research notes and my drafts if you want." "That will not be necessary. I am sending you to the principal's office with a formal complaint for plagiarism." "This is serious, Miss Park. You could be expelled." "But I did not." "Do not make it worse by lying. Go, now." Ji-won picked up her bag and walked out of the room. Her eyes were burning, but she did not cry. She would not give Ms. Whitmore that satisfaction. She walked down the long hallway to the principal's office, her old shoes squeaking on the shiny floor. She did not know it yet, but this was only the beginning. The principal's office was quiet and cold. Principal Harrison was a short man with glasses who looked tired. He read through Ms. Whitmore's complaint while Ji-won sat in the hard chair across from his desk. She kept her hands folded in her lap and waited. "Miss Park, these are serious accusations. Ms. Whitmore says you plagiarized your essay," Principal Harrison said. "I did not plagiarize, sir. I wrote every word myself. I can show you my drafts and my research notes." Principal Harrison sighed. "Do you have them with you?" Ji-won pulled out her notebook. Inside were pages and pages of handwritten notes, references to books and articles, and 3 different drafts of the essay. She handed everything to the principal. He spent 20 minutes going through it all. Finally, he looked up. "This all appears to be your own work. I see your thought process developing through the drafts. I will tell Ms. Whitmore that I found no evidence of plagiarism." "Thank you, sir. However, Miss Park, I suggest you try to stay on Ms. Whitmore's good side. She is a respected teacher here. Make things easier on yourself." Ji-won did not know what to say to that. She just nodded and left the office. She knew what the principal was really saying. He was telling her to accept whatever Ms. Whitmore did to her. It was not fair, but Ji-won had learned a long time ago that life was not fair. When Ji-won returned to class the next day, Ms. Whitmore was waiting. Her face was red and her mouth was tight. She did not say anything to Ji-won, but her eyes were full of anger. Ji-won could tell this was not over. Over the next few weeks, Ms. Whitmore watched Ji-won like a hawk. She wrote down everything. If Ji-won's shoes looked too scuffed, Ms. Whitmore made a note. If Ji-won's notebook was shabby, Ms. Whitmore made a note. If Ji-won was even 30 seconds late to class, Ms. Whitmore made a note. She was building a file. Other teachers noticed what was happening. Some of them looked uncomfortable when Ms. Whitmore complained about Ji-won in the teacher's lounge. But no one said anything. No one wanted to cause problems. Only Mr. Chen, the math teacher, was different. He was a quiet man who had been teaching for 30 years. When he saw Ji-won in the hallway, he would nod kindly at her. Once he stopped her, Keep your head up, Miss Park. Do not let them break your spirit, he said quietly. Ji-won almost cried. It was the first kind thing any teacher had said to her. Thank you, Mr. Chen. Every day after school, Ji-won had to take 3 different buses to get across the city. The trip took almost 2 hours. She would sit on the bus and do her homework or read. People on the bus ignored her. She was just another student in a school uniform. Finally, she would get off at a stop near the university. She would walk 2 blocks to a large modern building made of glass and steel. Before going inside, she would stop at a public restroom in a nearby coffee shop. She would change out of her school uniform and into jeans and a sweater. She would put her hair up differently. Then she would walk to the research building. The security guard at the front desk always smiled when he saw her. He was an older man named Robert who had worked there for 15 years. Good evening, Dr. Park, he said warmly. Good evening, Robert. How is your daughter doing? Much better, thank you for asking. The medicine you recommended really helped. I am glad to hear that. Ji-won scanned her ID card and took the elevator to the 7th floor. The doors opened to a bright laboratory full of equipment and computers. 5 people looked up when she entered. They all smiled. Ji-won, finally. We have been waiting for you, said Dr. Sarah Martinez, her research partner. Sorry I am late. The bus was slow today. No problem. Come look at this. The latest test results are incredible. Ji-won walked over to the computer screen and looked at the data. Her eyes went wide. This was the breakthrough they had been hoping for. For the next 4 hours, she forgot all about Hamilton Academy and Ms. Whitmore. Here in the lab, she was herself. She was respected. She mattered, but the next morning she had to go back to school. She had to put on the old uniform and carry the patched backpack. She had to become the poor scholarship student again. In history class, Ms. Whitmore had a new assignment. Class, I want each of you to give a presentation on the importance of knowing one's place in society. Miss Park, you will go first tomorrow. Ji-won knew this was a trap. Whatever she said would be wrong. But she prepared anyway. That night, between her homework and her lab work, she worked on the presentation. She decided to be honest. She would talk about how every person has value regardless of their social class. She would talk about dignity and respect. The next day, she stood at the front of the class and gave her presentation. She spoke clearly and calmly. She used examples from history. She talked about civil rights movements and social change. The other students listened quietly. Some of them looked impressed. But Ms. Whitmore's face got redder and redder. When Ji-won finished, Ms. Whitmore stood up. Very interesting, Miss Park. Tell me, where did you learn to read? Did your parents even finish high school? The class went silent. Ji-won felt her face get hot. My parents both finished high school, ma'am. They taught me to read when I was young. How young? Because this level of reading comprehension usually requires years of expensive education. The kind of education your family could never afford. I learned to read when I was 3, ma'am. Ms. Whitmore laughed. It was not a nice laugh. 3 years old? How convenient. And where exactly did you learn about civil rights history? They certainly do not teach that in public schools. I read books from the library, ma'am. The library is free? Of course it is. How else would someone like you access books? Tell me, do you think you are better than your parents? Is that why you are here? Trying to rise above your station? Ji-won's hands were shaking. She kept her voice steady. I love my parents, ma'am. I'm here because I want to learn. That is all. Sit down, Miss Park. That is enough. Ji-won walked back to her seat. She could feel everyone staring at her. She wanted to disappear. Emma, the red-haired girl from the first day, looked at her with sad eyes. But she did not say anything. The harassment got worse. Ms. Whitmore made Ji-won answer every difficult question in class. If Ji-won got the answer right, Ms. Whitmore accused her of cheating somehow. If she got it wrong, Ms. Whitmore used it as proof that Ji-won did not belong at Hamilton Academy. 3 weeks into the school year, something terrible happened. The class was working on individual assignments. Ji-won was focused on her work. She did not see Ms. Whitmore walk past her desk. She did not see Ms. Whitmore slip something into her backpack. 10 minutes later, Ms. Whitmore announced that someone had stolen her expensive pen. It was a silver pen that cost $500. She said it had been on her desk before class and now it was gone. Everyone stand up. I am going to check bags, Ms. Whitmore said. The students all stood up. Ms. Whitmore went through the bags one by one. She took her time. Finally, she got to Ji-won's bag. She opened it and pretended to search. Then her hand came out holding the silver pen. Well, what do we have here? Ms. Whitmore said loudly. The class gasped. Everyone stared at Ji-won. Ji-won felt like the world was spinning. That is not mine. I did not take it. I do not know how it got there, Ji-won said. Her voice was shaking. Of course you would say that. But here it is in your bag. You stole from me. I did not. I would never steal. Do not make this worse by lying. I am very disappointed, Miss Park. Although I suppose I should not be surprised. People from your background often have trouble understanding what belongs to them and what does not. For the first time since coming to Hamilton Academy, Ji-won started to cry. She could not help it. The tears just came. She was not crying because she was accused of stealing. She was crying because she had tried so hard to be good and respectful and it did not matter. Nothing mattered. Ms. Whitmore had decided to destroy her and there was nothing Ji-won could do about it. Emma sat frozen in her seat. She had seen everything. She had seen Ms. Whitmore put the pen in Ji-won's bag. But she was too scared to say anything. What if Ms. Whitmore turned on her next? What if the other students stopped being her friends? Emma looked at Ji-won crying and felt sick to her stomach. Ms. Whitmore sent Ji-won to the principal's office again. This time Principal Harrison looked more serious. Miss Park, theft is grounds for immediate expulsion. I have to call an emergency school board hearing. I did not steal the pen, sir. I promise. Someone put it in my bag. Do you have any proof of that? Ji-won had no proof. She had no witnesses. She had nothing. No, sir. Then I am afraid we have a serious problem. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. Ji-won went home that day feeling completely defeated. Her parents were worried, but they believed her. They told her everything would be okay. But Ji-won was not sure. How could everything be okay when one person had so much power over her? That night she went to the lab as usual. Her research team could tell something was wrong. Dr. Martinez asked her about it. Ji-won told them everything. They were shocked and angry. They wanted to help, but what could they do? Ji-won asked them to stay out of it. She did not want to make things complicated. But Dr. Martinez had other ideas. She contacted the university chancellor. Something needed to be done about this. They could not let their youngest and brightest researcher be destroyed by a bully with a teaching license. The chancellor listened and began making calls. Ji-won did not know about any of this. She just knew she had 1 week before the hearing. 1 week before they decided if she would be expelled. She tried to stay strong, but it was hard. Every night she cried into her pillow. Every morning she forced herself to get up and go back to school. Emma could not sleep either. The image of Ms. Whitmore planting that pen kept playing in her mind. She knew she had to do something. Finally, she made a decision. She pulled out her phone and found the video she had secretly recorded. Her hands had been shaking when she filmed it, and the angle was not perfect, but you could see what happened. You could see Ms. Whitmore put the pen in Ji-won's bag. Emma saved the video to 3 different places. Then she waited for the hearing. She would tell the truth. She had to. The hearing room was cold and formal. Long tables were arranged in a U-shape. 5 school board members sat at the front table. They were all older adults in business suits. They looked important and busy. Principal Harrison sat to the side with a folder full of papers. Ms. Whitmore sat at one table looking confident. She had dressed extra professionally for the hearing. She wore a navy blue suit and her hair was pulled back perfectly. Ji-won sat alone at the other table. She wore her school uniform because it was all she had. Her parents had wanted to come, but they both had to work. Her father could not take time off from his construction job. Her mother could not miss her cleaning appointments. They needed the money. Besides, Ji-won had told them not to worry. She said she would handle it. But sitting there alone, she felt very small. The board chairman was a man named Mr. Thompson. He had gray hair and wore expensive glasses. He cleared his throat and the room went quiet. We are here today to discuss serious allegations against student Ji-won Park. Ms. Whitmore, please present your case. Ms. Whitmore stood up. She picked up a thick folder and held it for everyone to see. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I have been teaching at Hamilton Academy for 12 years. In all that time, I have never seen a student quite like Miss Park. She opened the folder. Inside were dozens of pages. This is my documentation of Miss Park's behavior since she arrived at our school. On her first day, she showed up in inappropriate attire. Her uniform was old and worn. Her shoes were scuffed. This shows a lack of respect for our institution's standards. Ji-won wanted to speak up. She wanted to say that she could not afford a new uniform. But she stayed quiet. The board members were writing notes, Ms. Whitmore continued. Then there was the plagiarism incident. Ms. Park turned in an essay that was far too advanced for someone of her background. The writing was graduate level. I firmly believed then, and I still believe now, that she copied it from somewhere. The principal found no evidence of plagiarism. One board member said, "Yes, well, Miss Park is clearly very clever. She covered her tracks well. But I know my students. I know what they are capable of. Someone from a poor public school simply does not write like that." Ms. Whitmore went through her folder page by page. She had notes about every little thing. The time Ji-won's notebook looked messy. The time she was 20 seconds late to class. The time she asked to go to the bathroom. Everything was written down and made to sound terrible. And finally, we come to the theft. My pen, which cost $500, was stolen from my desk during class. I searched the students' bags and found it in Miss Park's backpack. When confronted, she lied about it. I did not lie, Ji-won said quietly. "Do not interrupt, Miss Park," Mr. Thompson said. Ms. Whitmore smiled. "You see? She has no respect for authority. She does not follow rules. She does not understand that there are consequences for her actions. The truth is simple. Miss Park does not belong at Hamilton Academy. She is corrupting our institution's values. She is bringing down the quality of education for the other students. I strongly recommend immediate expulsion." Ms. Whitmore sat down. She looked satisfied. Several board members nodded. Mr. Thompson looked at Ji-won. "Miss Park, do you have anything to say in your defense?" Ji-won stood up slowly. Her legs felt weak, but she made herself stand straight. "Yes, sir. I would like to address each accusation." She pulled out her own notebook. Her hands were shaking a little, but her voice was clear. "First, about my uniform. Ms. Whitmore is correct. My uniform is old. My mother bought it second-hand because that is all we could afford. But I always make sure it is clean and pressed. I follow every rule in the dress code. Being poor is not the same as being disrespectful." One board member, a woman with kind eyes, looked up with interest. Second, about the plagiarism. I did not plagiarize my essay. I wrote it myself. I showed the principal my research notes, my drafts, everything. He agreed that it was my own work. I have been reading since I was 3 years old. I love learning. Just because I come from a public school does not mean I am not smart. "That is quite enough," Ms. Whitmore interrupted. "This is exactly what I am talking about. She is arrogant. She thinks she is better than everyone." "Let her finish," the kind board member said. Ji-won took a deep breath. "Third, about the pen. I did not steal it. I would never steal. Someone put that pen in my bag. I do not know who or why, but I am telling the truth." "Do you have any proof?" Mr. Thompson asked. "No, sir, but I am asking you to believe me. I have worked hard every day. I have done everything asked of me and more. I have never caused trouble. I just want to learn." Mr. Thompson looked at the other board members. They whispered to each other. Ji-won could not hear what they were saying, but their faces did not look sympathetic. One man kept checking his watch like he wanted this to be over. "Miss Park, I understand this is difficult for you," Mr. Thompson said, "but we have to think about the reputation of Hamilton Academy. We cannot have students who steal from teachers." "But I did not steal," Ji-won said. She could feel tears starting, but she blinked them back. "That is what someone who is guilty would say," another board member added. Ms. Whitmore was smiling now. She knew she had won. Then the door suddenly burst open. Emma ran into the room. Her face was red and she was breathing hard like she had been running. "Wait, please wait," Emma shouted. "Young lady, this is a closed hearing," Mr. Thompson said sternly. "I know, but I have evidence. Important evidence. Please let me speak." Principal Harrison stood up. "This is Emma Richardson. She is a student in Ms. Whitmore's class." The board members looked at each other. "This is highly irregular," Mr. Thompson said. "Please," Emma begged. "You need to hear this before you make a decision." "Very well. You have 2 minutes." Emma walked to the center of the room. She was shaking, but her voice was strong. "I was in class the day the pen was stolen. I saw what happened." Ms. Whitmore's smile disappeared. "Miss Richardson, you should not be here." "I saw you put the pen in Ji-won's bag," Emma said, looking right at Ms. Whitmore. "You walked past her desk during the assignment. You pretended to look at her work. But you slipped the pen into her backpack. I saw you do it. The room exploded with noise. The board members all started talking at once. Ms. Whitmore jumped to her feet. "That is a lie." "She is lying." "I am not lying," Emma said. She pulled out her phone. "And I have proof. I recorded it." Emma's hands were shaking as she connected her phone to the screen in the hearing room. Everyone watched as the video played. The quality was not perfect. The angle was strange. But you could see Ms. Whitmore clearly. You could see her walk past Jiwon's desk. You could see her hand go into the backpack. You could see her slip something inside. When the video ended, no one spoke. Ms. Whitmore had gone completely pale. Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. "This video clearly shows Ms. Whitmore planting the pen," the kind board member said. "Why would you do such a thing?" Ms. Whitmore finally found her voice. This is out of context. You do not understand. I was just..." Emma is a troubled child. She is making this up. She probably edited the video. "The video has metadata," Emma said quietly. "It shows the date and time. It cannot be edited without leaving traces. You can have it checked by an expert." Mr. Thompson looked furious. "Principal Harrison, did you know about this?" "No, sir. This is the first I'm hearing of it." One of the board members stood up. "We need to stop this hearing immediately. This changes everything." "Wait," another member said. "Before we adjourn, I just received an urgent message. There are visitors at the main office who are demanding to attend this hearing. They say it concerns Miss Park." "Who are they?" Mr. Thompson asked. "The message says it is the chancellor of the state university along with other university officials. They have a lawyer with them." Everyone in the room looked confused. Why would the university chancellor care about a high school expulsion hearing? Ms. Whitmore looked worried now. Her confident smile was completely gone. "Well, this is most unusual," Mr. Thompson said. "But given the circumstances, I suppose we should hear what they have to say. Principal Harrison, please escort them in." Principal Harrison left the room. Everyone waited in tense silence. Ms. Whitmore kept looking at the door nervously. Jiwon had no idea what was happening. She knew nothing about any university officials. The door opened. Principal Harrison came back in, followed by 5 people. They were all dressed in professional clothes. The man in front was tall with gray hair and kind eyes. He looked like someone important. Behind him was a woman with sharp eyes and a serious expression. She carried a briefcase. The others were clearly university staff and a man who was obviously a lawyer. "Thank you for allowing us to join this hearing," the tall man said. His voice was calm but powerful. "I am Chancellor Robert Foster from State University. With me are Dean Patricia Chen, our head of research, our legal counsel, and 2 other staff members." "Chancellor Foster, with all respect, why are you here?" Mr. Thompson asked. "We are here because we understand you are considering the expulsion of Dr. Park," Chancellor Foster said calmly. The entire room went silent. Someone dropped a pen and it clattered loudly on the floor. "Dr. Park?" Mr. Thompson repeated slowly. "This is a high school student." "No," Chancellor Foster said. "This is Dr. Jiwon Park. She earned her doctorate degree at the age of 16 3 years ago. She is currently one of our most valued researchers at the university." Ms. Whitmore made a strange sound. It was half gasp, half choke. All the color drained from her face. Chancellor Foster walked over to where Jiwon was sitting. He smiled at her gently. "Hello, Jiwon. I'm sorry we had to come here like this. But we could not let this continue." Jiwon looked up at him with wide eyes. She had told her research team not to interfere. But they had contacted the university anyway. Now everyone would know. Her secret was out. One board member finally found his voice. "I do not understand. If she has a doctorate, why is she in high school?" "Because she asked to be," Chancellor Foster said. Jiwon finished her education very young. She never had a normal childhood or teenage years. Her family wanted her to have that experience. So she came to Hamilton Academy to attend regular high school while continuing her research part-time. She specifically requested that the administration not tell the staff about her background. She wanted to be treated like any other student. He looked around the room. His eyes landed on Ms. Whitmore. "And how has she been treated?" Ms. Whitmore opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She looked like she wanted to disappear. Dean Chen stepped forward. She opened her briefcase and pulled out a folder even thicker than Ms. Whitmore's. "We have been monitoring the situation for the past 2 weeks, since Jiwon told her research mentor what was happening. This folder contains detailed documentation of Ms. Whitmore's harassment, discrimination, and abuse of power. She placed the folder on the table in front of the board members. You will find dates, times, and witness statements. You will also find that this is not the first time Ms. Whitmore has targeted scholarship students from poor families or students of color. We found 3 previous cases. All 3 students left Hamilton Academy because of her treatment. This is absurd, Ms. Whitmore finally managed to say. Her voice was high and panicked. If she had just told me who she was, none of this would have happened. Everyone in the room turned to look at her. Chancellor Foster's expression was cold. Why should that matter? He asked quietly. The question hung in the air. Why should that matter? Ms. Whitmore's face turned red, then white, then red again. She opened her mouth several times but could not seem to find words. Chancellor Foster continued, his voice calm but firm. Are you saying that Jiwon deserved respect only if she had impressive credentials? That students from poor families should be treated badly unless they can prove they are special? No. That is not what I meant, Ms. Whitmore stammered. Then what did you mean? Dean Chen asked sharply. The board members were all staring at Ms. Whitmore now. She looked around the room desperately, but no one was on her side anymore. Even Principal Harrison was looking at her with disappointment. Chancellor Foster turned to the board. Let me tell you about Dr. Park. 3 years ago, at the age of 16, she became the youngest person in our university's history to earn a doctorate in cellular biology. Her dissertation was published in 3 major scientific journals. She has won numerous awards and fellowships. But more importantly, she is one of the kindest, most dedicated researchers I have ever met. Dean Chen pulled papers from the folder. Here are her published papers. 12 peer-reviewed articles. 2 book chapters. She has presented at international conferences in 7 different countries. Last year, she was invited to speak at a symposium with 3 Nobel Prize winners. She passed the papers to the board members. They looked shocked as they flipped through the pages. Currently, Dr. Park leads a research team working on cancer treatment. Chancellor Foster continued. Her work focuses on cellular regeneration and targeted therapy. The early results are extraordinary. In 5 years, her research could save thousands of lives, maybe millions. He pulled out his phone and showed pictures on the screen. The board members gathered around to look. The pictures showed Jiwon in a white lab coat standing with her research team. Jiwon presenting at a conference with hundreds of people in the audience. Jiwon shaking hands with famous scientists. Jiwon receiving an award on a stage. 3 months ago, the Nobel Committee added her to their watch list, Dean Chen said. She is the youngest researcher they have ever watched. At 19 years old, she is being considered for a Nobel Prize. The kind board member who had defended Jiwon earlier looked like she might cry, and we almost expelled her for theft that she did not commit. Yes, Chancellor Foster said simply. Ms. Whitmore had slumped down in her chair. She looked smaller somehow. Her hands were shaking and she kept swallowing like she might be sick. I would like to show you something else, the university lawyer said. He was a serious-looking man with gray at his temples. He opened his laptop and connected it to the screen. These are emails from Ms. Whitmore's school account. We obtained them legally through a formal request to the school district after learning about this situation. The emails appeared on the screen. Everyone leaned forward to read them. The first email was from 2 years ago. Ms. Whitmore had written to another teacher. These scholarship students are lowering the prestige of our institution. They do not belong here. Another email from last year. I do not understand why we accept these people. They cannot afford to be here. They should stay in public schools where they belong. And another from just last month before Jiwon even started school. Another scholarship student in my class this year. From a poor family. I am sure this will be a disaster. The board members looked horrified. One woman actually put her hand over her mouth. Mr. Thompson's face was bright red with anger. There are 15 more emails like this, the lawyer said, all showing a clear pattern of discrimination based on socioeconomic status and, in several cases, race. This is taken out of context, Ms. Whitmore said weakly. I was just venting. Teachers are allowed to have opinions. Opinions are one thing, Principal Harrison said quietly. Discrimination is another. These emails show that you have been targeting certain students for years. How did I not see this? Ms. Whitmore did not answer. She was staring at the table. Chancellor Foster walked over to stand in front of the board. Now I would like to ask Dr. Park to speak. I think you need to hear from her directly. All eyes turned to G1. She had been sitting quietly through all of this, looking overwhelmed. Chancellor Foster gave her an encouraging nod. Slowly, G1 stood up. She took a deep breath. I came to Hamilton Academy because I wanted to be normal, she started. Her voice was quiet, but everyone listened carefully. I finished my education very young. I never went to a regular school with kids my age. I never had friends who were teenagers like me. I never went to dances or football games or any of the normal things teenagers do. She paused and looked around the room. My parents worried about me. They said I was too isolated, too focused on work. They wanted me to have a childhood before it was too late, so we decided I would go to high school while continuing my research part-time. I would finally get to be a regular teenager. But why not tell anyone who you were? Mr. Thompson asked. His voice was much gentler now. Because I wanted to be treated like everyone else, Jiwan said. In my research world, everyone knows who I am. They treat me carefully. They give me special attention. I am always Dr. Park or the young genius or the prodigy. I wanted to go somewhere where I was just Jiwan, just a regular student trying to learn and make friends. She looked at Ms. Whitmore. I thought if I worked hard and was respectful, that would be enough. I thought I could prove I belonged here just by being a good student. But I was wrong. You were not wrong, the kind board member said. You should not have to prove anything. Ms. Whitmore did not see a student when she looked at me, Jiwan continued. Her voice was getting stronger. She saw someone she thought was beneath her. Someone who was poor. Someone whose parents did not have fancy jobs. Someone who did not look like she belonged at an expensive school. Ms. Whitmore tried to interrupt. That is not— Let her finish, Dean Chen said sharply. Jiwan's eyes were wet, but her voice did not shake. Every day I came to school and tried to be invisible. I sat in the back. I did not complain. I accepted all the extra homework. I accepted being humiliated in front of the class. I accepted the stares and the whispers. I told myself it did not matter, that I was strong enough to handle it. She wiped her eyes. But it did matter, it hurt. Every single day it hurt. I can stand in front of hundreds of scientists and present my research without being nervous. I can handle complex problems that take months to solve. But I could not handle being treated like I was worthless. The room was completely silent except for Jiwan's voice. Do you know what the worst part was? I started to believe it. I started to think maybe Ms. Whitmore was right. Maybe I did not belong here. Maybe I was too different. Too poor, too wrong. I have a doctorate degree and I lead cancer research, but a high school teacher almost convinced me I was nothing. Ms. Whitmore was crying now, not from sadness, from humiliation, from the realization of what she had done and what it meant for her career. I did not reveal my identity because it should not have mattered, Jiwan said, looking at each board member. Every student deserves respect. Every student deserves kindness. It should not matter if they are rich or poor. It should not matter what color their skin is or what their parents do for work. Being a good person should be enough. Being a good student should be enough. She turned to face Ms. Whitmore directly. You accused me of plagiarism because you could not believe someone like me could write well. You gave me extra homework to put me in my place. You made fun of my parents in front of the whole class. You planted a pen in my bag and tried to get me expelled. And why? Because my uniform was old? Because my parents clean houses and work construction? Because I did not look like the other students? I am sorry, Ms. Whitmore whispered. But it sounded empty. She was not sorry for what she did. She was sorry she got caught. No, you are not, Jiwan said quietly. You are just sorry that I turned out to be someone important. If I was just a regular poor student, you would still think you did nothing wrong. That statement hit hard. Everyone in the room felt the truth of it. Chancellor Foster put his hand gently on Jiwan's shoulder. Thank you, Jiwan. That was very brave, Jiwan sat down. She felt exhausted and shaky. Emma was crying in the corner. She walked over and hugged Jiwan. I am so sorry, Emma whispered. I should have said something sooner. You said something when it mattered most, Jiwan whispered back. Thank you. The board members were having a heated discussion among themselves. Finally, Mr. Thompson stood up. We need to recess for 2 hours while we discuss how to handle this situation. This is far more serious than we realized. Everyone filed out of the room except the board members. In the hallway, Chancellor Foster talked quietly with Jiwan. Your team was very worried about you. Dr. Martinez called me directly. She said you were in trouble and needed help. I told them not to interfere, Ji-won said. I know, but they care about you, we all do. You are not just a researcher to us. You are family. Dean Chen joined them. What Ms. Whitmore did was illegal. We could press criminal charges if you want. Ji-won shook her head. I do not want revenge. I just want it to stop. I want it to stop for me and for every other student she might hurt in the future. It will stop, Dean Chen promised. I will make sure of it. 2 hours felt like forever. Finally, everyone was called back into the hearing room. The board members looked serious and tired. Mr. Thompson stood up to speak. We have reached several decisions. First, all accusations against Ji-won Park are dropped completely. She is cleared of all charges. We offer our sincere apologies for putting her through this ordeal. Ji-won felt relief wash over her. Second, we are launching a full investigation into Ms. Whitmore's conduct over her entire 12-year career at Hamilton Academy. We will be reviewing all her interactions with scholarship students and students of color. Ms. Whitmore's face went white. Third, effective immediately, Ms. Whitmore is suspended without pay pending the results of the investigation. She is not to come onto school property or contact any students. You cannot do this, Ms. Whitmore said. Her voice was rising. I have tenure. I have rights. You have the right to due process which you will receive, the university lawyer said calmly. But the evidence against you is overwhelming. The school board would be negligent if they did not act. Ms. Whitmore stood up. Her chair fell over backwards with a loud crash. This is all her fault, she shouted, pointing at Ji-won. She came here and ruined everything. If she had just stayed where she belonged. That is enough, Mr. Thompson said firmly. Security will escort you out. 2 security guards came in and stood on either side of Ms. Whitmore. She looked around the room one last time. Her face was full of anger and fear. Then the guards led her away. Her footsteps echoed down the hallway and then she was gone. The day after the hearing, Ji-won went to school expecting things to be awkward. She was right. Everyone knew what had happened. The story had spread through the entire school overnight. Students stared at her as she walked down the hallway. But the stares were different now. They were not mean or judging. They were curious and a little bit amazed. A group of students she had never talked to before stopped her in the hallway. Is it true? One girl asked. Are you really a doctor? Yes, Ji-won said quietly. And you work on cancer research? Yes. That is so cool, another student said. Can I ask you something? Why did you come here? I mean, you could be anywhere in the world. Why our school? Ji-won thought about it. Because I wanted to be normal. I wanted friends and experiences. I wanted to know what regular life felt like. The students looked at each other. Well, you picked the wrong teacher to have, the first girl said. Everyone knew Ms. Whitmore was mean. But we did not know she was that bad. A lot of us feel terrible, another student admitted. We saw how she treated you. We should have said something. It is okay, Ji-won said. But it was not really okay. Their silence had hurt. Still, she understood. Speaking up was scary. Emma had been brave. Most people were not. At lunch, Emma sat with Ji-won. Soon, other students joined them. They asked questions about her research and her life at the university. Ji-won answered honestly. It felt strange to talk openly about her work. But it also felt good. She did not have to hide anymore. Do you really think you might win a Nobel Prize? One boy asked. Ji-won laughed. Probably not. I am very young. The competition is fierce. But maybe someday. Still, that is amazing. You are amazing. For the first time since coming to Hamilton Academy, Ji-won felt like she belonged. But while Ji-won's life at school was getting better, Ms. Whitmore's life was falling apart. The school board hired an outside firm to investigate her conduct. What they found was shocking. The investigators interviewed current students, former students, teachers, and staff. They went through 12 years of emails, grade records, and disciplinary reports. A pattern emerged that was impossible to ignore. Over the past 12 years, Ms. Whitmore had taught 847 students. Of those, 96 were scholarship students from low-income families. Ms. Whitmore had given failing grades to 34 of those 96 students. That was a failure rate of 35%. For non-scholarship students, her failure rate was only 8%. The numbers got worse. Of the 96 scholarship students, 23 had been sent to the principal's office for disciplinary issues. Of the 751 non-scholarship students, only 31 had been sent for discipline. The rates were completely different. 3 former scholarship students agreed to be interviewed. Their stories were heartbreaking. The first was a young woman named Maria Gonzalez. She had been a student 4 years ago. "Ms. Whitmore made my life horrible," Maria said, tears in her eyes. "She told me I was stupid. She said my English was bad even though I was born here. She gave me failing grades even when my work was good. I finally dropped out. I could not take it anymore. I never finished high school." The second was a young man named James Chen, Mr. Chen's nephew. "My uncle tried to help me," James said. "He talked to the principal about Ms. Whitmore, but nothing happened. She just got worse after that. She accused me of cheating on every test. She made me retake tests in front of her, asking me questions out loud to prove I knew the material. It was humiliating. I transferred schools." The third was a girl named Aisha Muhammad. "I used to love history," Aisha said quietly. "It was my favorite subject. But Ms. Whitmore killed that love. She made me feel small and worthless every single day. She said things like people like you and where you come from. I knew she meant because I am black and Muslim. I got so depressed I had to see a therapist. I still have anxiety attacks when I think about her class." The investigators compiled all of this into a 200-page report. They also found something else. Mr. Chen, the kind math teacher, had filed a formal complaint about Ms. Whitmore 3 years ago. He had documented her discrimination and asked the school to investigate. Principal Harrison had received the complaint. He had filed it away and done nothing. When the board confronted Principal Harrison about this, he had no good answer. "I thought Mr. Chen was overreacting," he said weakly. "Ms. Whitmore was a respected teacher. I did not think she would actually hurt students." "You were wrong," Mr. Thompson said coldly. "Your failure to act allowed her to hurt many more students. That is on you." Principal Harrison resigned the next day. The story caught the attention of the local news. A reporter named Sandra Kim had been following education issues for years. When she heard about Jiwon and Ms. Whitmore, she knew this was important. She wrote an article titled "Teen Genius Subjected to Racist Harassment at Prestigious School." The article went viral. Within 24 hours, it had been shared 50,000 times. National news organizations picked it up. Suddenly, everyone was talking about Hamilton Academy and Ms. Whitmore. Other victims started coming forward. A woman named Patricia, who had been Ms. Whitmore's student 10 years ago, called Sandra Kim. "I thought I was the only one," Patricia said. "I thought it was my fault. I did not know she did this to other students too." More emails from Ms. Whitmore were leaked to the press. In one, she had written to a friend, "These scholarship students are changing the culture of our school. Hamilton used to be for a certain type of family. Now we are letting in anyone. It is destroying everything we built." The public reaction was fierce. Parents called the school demanding answers. Former students organized protests. The board members received hundreds of angry emails and calls. Ms. Whitmore hired a lawyer and tried to defend herself. She gave one interview to a friendly news outlet. "I was just trying to maintain standards," she said. "These students came from schools with lower expectations. I pushed them to do better. If that is a crime, then I am guilty." But her defense fell apart when reporters found more evidence. Old students posted stories on social media. Teachers who had worked with her came forward. Even some of her friends admitted she had said discriminatory things in private. One former colleague said, "Victoria used to complain about diversity initiatives. She said the school was lowering its standards to meet quotas. She truly believed some students did not deserve to be there." Within 2 weeks, the State Education Board held an emergency hearing. They reviewed all the evidence. The emails, the statistics, the witness statements, everything. The hearing lasted 6 hours. In the end, their decision was unanimous. Ms. Whitmore's teaching license was revoked. She could never teach in any school in the state again. She could apply to have it reinstated after 5 years, but she would have to complete extensive training and prove she had changed. Hamilton Academy terminated her employment with cause. This meant she lost her pension benefits. After 12 years of teaching, she left with almost nothing. 3 families whose children had suffered under Ms. Whitmore filed civil lawsuits against her personally. They sued for emotional distress and damages. Ms. Whitmore's lawyer advised her to settle. She paid out a total of $150,000 to the 3 families. The money came from her savings and retirement accounts. The district attorney considered filing criminal charges for planting evidence and filing false reports. But Jiwon asked them not to. "I do not want revenge," she told the prosecutor. I just want to make sure she never hurts another student. She cannot teach anymore. That is enough. The prosecutor respected Ji-won's wishes. No criminal charges were filed, but Ms. Whitmore's life was still destroyed. She could not get another teaching job. Her reputation was ruined. Even her friends stopped talking to her. She had to sell her house and move to a different state to escape the attention. Meanwhile, Hamilton Academy had to rebuild. The board appointed an interim principal, a woman named Dr. Sandra Wright, who had a strong background in inclusive education. Her first act was to apologize publicly to all the students who had been hurt. "We failed you," Dr. Wright said at a school assembly. "We allowed discrimination to happen under our watch. We ignored complaints. We protected a teacher instead of protecting students. That was wrong. We are deeply, truly sorry." She announced a series of reforms. First, the school would create a diversity and inclusion committee with student representatives. Second, all teachers would undergo mandatory training on implicit bias and cultural sensitivity. Third, there would be a new anonymous reporting system for discrimination. And fourth, all disciplinary hearings would include a student advocate to ensure fairness. The school also reviewed all of Ms. Whitmore's past grades and disciplinary actions. Any student who felt they had been treated unfairly could request a review. 17 students came forward. After careful examination, 12 of them had their grades changed or disciplinary records cleared. Mr. Chen was promoted to Vice Principal of Student Affairs. His job was to make sure no student ever suffered like Ji-won and the others had. He took the job seriously. He met with every scholarship student personally. He listened to their concerns. He became their champion. "I should have done more for my nephew," he told Ji-won one day. "I should have pushed harder. I am sorry I did not." "You filed a report," Ji-won said. "You tried. The system failed, not you. Still, I will not fail again. I promise you that." As all of this was happening, Ji-won continued going to school and working at her lab. She was invited to speak at several events about her experience. At first, she did not want to. Public speaking about personal things made her uncomfortable. But her research mentor, Dr. Martinez, encouraged her. "People need to hear your story," Dr. Martinez said. "Not because you are special, but because what happened to you happens to so many students. If you speak up, maybe things will change." So Ji-won agreed to give one press conference. News organizations from around the country attended. Cameras and microphones were everywhere. Ji-won sat at a table with Chancellor Foster and Dean Chen on either side of her for support. "I want to make something very clear," Ji-won said, reading from notes she had prepared. "This is not about me being smart or having a doctorate degree. This is about how we treat people we think are less than us. Ms. Whitmore did not know about my education or my research. She judged me based on my appearance and my background, and because of that, she decided I did not deserve respect." Reporters wrote quickly, recording every word. "But here is the truth," Ji-won continued. "Every student deserves respect. Every human being deserves dignity. It should not matter if you are rich or poor. It should not matter what your parents do. It should not matter what you look like or where you come from. Basic human decency should not be something you have to earn." "Dr. Park," one reporter called out, "what do you want people to learn from your experience?" Ji-won thought carefully before answering. "I want people to understand that discrimination is not always obvious. Ms. Whitmore did not use slurs or violence, but she made my life miserable through small actions every day. She questioned my work. She humiliated me in class. She held me to different standards. That kind of discrimination is common and it is harmful. What would you say to other students facing similar situations?" "I would say speak up. Tell someone. I stayed quiet because I thought I could handle it alone. But I was wrong. No one should have to face that kind of treatment alone. And to adults, I would say listen to students. When they say something is wrong, believe them. Do not dismiss their concerns." The press conference video was viewed millions of times online. Ji-won's words struck a chord with people. Thousands of students shared their own stories of discrimination. The conversation grew beyond Hamilton Academy. Schools across the country started examining their own practices and policies. Back at Hamilton Academy, things slowly got better. Ji-won made real friends. Emma became her best friend. They studied together, ate lunch together, and talked about normal teenage things. 6 weeks after the hearing, the school board held its final meeting on the matter. The meeting was open to the public and the auditorium was packed. Students, parents, teachers, and reporters filled every seat. Ji-won sat in the front row with her parents on either side of her. It was the first time they had been able to attend a school event. Her father had taken the day off from his construction job. Her mother had rescheduled all her cleaning appointments. Mr. Thompson stood at the podium. He looked tired but determined. We have completed our investigation into the conduct of former teacher Victoria Whitmore. The findings are clear and disturbing. Over 12 years, Ms. Whitmore engaged in systematic discrimination against students from low-income families and students of color. He read from the report. The statistics were damning. The emails were worse. By the time he finished, many people in the audience were crying. Ms. Whitmore has been terminated from Hamilton Academy with cause. She has lost her teaching license. She can never work in education in this state again. Civil lawsuits have been settled. While criminal charges were not filed out of respect for Dr. Park's wishes, the option remains open if new evidence emerges. The audience erupted in applause. Mr. Thompson waited for quiet before continuing. But this is not just about one teacher. This is about a system that failed. I must take responsibility as board chairman. We ignored warning signs. We dismissed complaints. We protected an employee instead of protecting students. For that, I offer my resignation effective immediately. This was not expected. The audience gasped. Mr. Thompson stepped down from the podium and walked out of the auditorium. He had been board chairman for 15 years. Now he was gone. The vice chairman, the kind woman who had defended Ji-won during the hearing, took his place. Her name was Mrs. Patricia Wong. Change is hard, she said, but it is necessary. Hamilton Academy is going to be different from now on. She announced the new policies. The Diversity and Inclusion Committee was already meeting weekly. Anonymous reporting had led to 3 more complaints against other teachers, which were being investigated. New training programs were mandatory for all staff. And most importantly, scholarship students would have dedicated support staff to help them succeed. We are also establishing a new scholarship fund, Mrs. Wong said. It will be called the Justice and Dignity Fund. It will help students from low-income families not just with tuition, but with uniforms, books, supplies, and anything else they need to feel like they truly belong here. The audience applauded again. Ji-won felt tears in her eyes. Her father squeezed her hand. Finally, I want to recognize 2 people. First, Emma Richardson, whose courage in speaking the truth changed everything. Emma, please stand up. Emma stood up, her face bright red. The entire auditorium stood and applauded. She looked embarrassed but also proud. When she sat down, Ji-won hugged her tight. Second, Dr. Ji-won Park. You did not have to share your story. You could have left and never looked back. But you stayed. You spoke up. You made us face uncomfortable truths. Because of you, Hamilton Academy will be better. Because of you, future students will be safer. Thank you. Everyone stood and applauded again. Ji-won stood slowly. She did not know what to say, so she just nodded and smiled. When she sat back down, her mother was crying happy tears. After the meeting, Ji-won was approached by a young girl. She looked about 14 and seemed nervous. Dr. Park, can I talk to you for a minute? Of course. What is your name? I am Sarah. I am a scholarship student. I just started this year after everything happened with Ms. Whitmore. How are you doing? Is everyone treating you well? Yes, things are much better now. But I wanted to say thank you. Before I was scared to come here. I thought everyone would look down on me because my family does not have money. But after hearing your story, I felt brave. If you could survive what happened to you, then I could handle anything. Ji-won felt her heart swell. This was why she had spoken up. Not for herself, but for students like Sarah. You belong here just as much as anyone else. Do not ever let anyone make you feel different. I will not. I promise. Over the next few weeks, Ji-won received hundreds of messages from students around the country. They shared their own stories of discrimination. They thanked her for speaking up. Some of them said her story had given them courage to report their own abusive teachers. One message particularly moved her. It was from Maria Gonzalez, the former student who had dropped out because of Ms. Whitmore. I'm going back to school, Maria wrote. I am going to finish my high school diploma. Then I am going to college. You showed me it is never too late. Thank you. Meanwhile, Ms. Whitmore tried to rebuild her life in a different state. She could not teach, so she looked for other work. But every time someone Googled her name, the articles came up, the news stories, the videos of Ji-won's press conference. Potential employers would read about what she had done and suddenly the job would not be available anymore. She tried to disappear online. She deleted her social media accounts, but it was too late. The internet does not forget. Her name would always be associated with discrimination and abuse. One day, 6 months after everything happened, Ms. Whitmore saw Jiwon by chance. She was visiting her sister who still lived near Hamilton Academy. She was walking to her car when she saw Jiwon leaving the school with a group of friends. They were laughing about something. Ms. Whitmore froze. For a moment, she thought about walking away, but something made her approach. Jiwon saw her coming and her friends went quiet. They moved closer to Jiwon protectively. "I will be okay," Jiwon told her friends. "Give me a minute." Her friends moved away but stayed close enough to help if needed. Ms. Whitmore stood in front of Jiwon. She looked terrible. She had lost weight. Her clothes were not as nice as before. There were dark circles under her eyes. "You destroyed my life," Ms. Whitmore said. Her voice was flat and tired. "No," Jiwon said calmly. "You destroyed your own life through your choices. I did not make you discriminate against students. I did not make you plant that pen. I did not make you write those emails. You did all of that yourself. But if you had just told me who you were, it should not have mattered who I was," Jiwon interrupted. "That is the point you still do not understand. Every student deserved the respect you refused to give. Their worth as human beings did not depend on their achievements or their family's income. Basic dignity should be a right, not something you have to earn." Ms. Whitmore's eyes filled with tears, but Jiwon could see they were tears of self-pity, not genuine remorse. "I lost everything. My career, my reputation, my friends, everything. And I almost lost my love of learning," Jiwon said quietly. "I almost started believing I was worthless. I almost gave up on the idea that hard work and goodness matter. You did not just hurt me. You hurt every student you discriminated against. Some of them dropped out. Some of them developed depression and anxiety. One girl still has panic attacks years later. How is your pain more important than theirs?" Ms. Whitmore had no answer. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Finally, she just turned and walked away. Jiwon watched her go, feeling a strange mix of emotions. She did not hate Ms. Whitmore, she just felt sad. Sad that someone could be so blinded by prejudice that they would hurt children. Sad that it had taken so much to make things change. "Are you okay?" Emma asked, running over. "Yes, I think I am." Life continued. Jiwon finished her first year at Hamilton Academy with perfect grades. She made the honor roll. She joined the science club. She even went to the prom with a nice boy from her math class. It was not romantic, just friendly. But it was normal, and that made her happy. At graduation, Jiwon was chosen as valedictorian. She had the highest grades in the entire senior class. She stood at the podium in her cap and gown, looking out at the crowd. Her parents were in the front row, crying and proud. Chancellor Foster and Dean Chen had come to support her. Mr. Chen sat with the other teachers, smiling warmly. 3 years ago, I earned my doctorate degree, Jiwon began. It was a huge accomplishment. I was proud, but I was also lonely. I had spent my entire life in classrooms and laboratories. I had never played on a playground. I had never failed a test or won a game or had a best friend. I had knowledge, but I was missing something important. I was missing life. Students and parents listened carefully, so I came here to Hamilton Academy to try to live like a normal teenager. It did not go how I expected. I faced discrimination and cruelty. I was judged not by my character, but by my family's income. I was treated as less than human because of how I looked and where I came from. She paused and looked around. But something good came from that pain. It forced this school to look at itself honestly. It forced all of us to ask hard questions. Are we treating everyone with dignity? Are we judging people fairly? Are we creating a community where everyone can thrive? The answer was no, but now we are trying to change that. Hamilton Academy is different than it was 2 years ago. It is not perfect yet, but it is better, and it will keep getting better as long as we remember one simple truth. Jiwon's voice grew stronger. We all contain multitudes. We are all complex and valuable and worthy of respect. No one should be reduced to assumptions based on their appearance or background. When we look at another person, we should see infinite possibility. We should see someone's full humanity. The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. I learned something important this year. Being smart is not what makes someone valuable. Having achievements is not what makes someone worthy. What makes us valuable is being human. What makes us worthy is treating each other with kindness and respect. That is the real measure of greatness. She looked at her parents. My parents taught me this. They work hard jobs. They sacrifice everything for me. They show up every day with dignity and grace. They are my heroes. Not because of what they have achieved, but because of who they are. Her father was openly crying now. Her mother held his hand, tears streaming down her face. So to my fellow graduates I say this. Go out into the world and be kind. Treat people with dignity. Stand up when you see injustice. Speak up when someone is being hurt. Do not be silent. Silence enables cruelty. Your voice matters. Use it. And remember that you belong anywhere you choose to be. Do not let anyone convince you otherwise. You are enough exactly as you are. The auditorium erupted in applause. Everyone stood cheering and clapping. Ji-won looked out at them and smiled. This moment right here was worth everything she had gone through. After the ceremony, Ji-won was surrounded by well-wishers. But she made sure to find Mr. Chen. Thank you for being kind when no one else was, she told him. You deserved kindness, he said simply. Every student does. I am just sorry I did not do more. You did enough. You showed me I was not alone. That mattered more than you know. 6 months later, Ji-won received a letter. It was from a young student at Hamilton Academy named Lisa. Lisa wrote, Dear Dr. Park, I am a scholarship student in my first year. Things are really hard sometimes. I feel like I do not fit in. My clothes are not as nice as the other students. My family cannot afford the things they can. Sometimes I feel like I do not belong here. But then I remember your story. I remember what you said about dignity and worth. I remember that being good is enough. Your words helped me get through hard days. I wanted to say thank you for making things better for students like me. Because of you, I have hope. Ji-won read the letter 3 times. Then she sat down and wrote back. Dear Lisa, thank you for your letter. I want you to know something important. You belong anywhere you choose to be. Never let anyone convince you otherwise. Your worth as a person exists independent of your clothes or your family's money. You are valuable simply because you exist. Keep working hard. Keep being kind. Keep showing up. You are going to do amazing things. I believe in you. With respect and admiration, Ji-won. She sent the letter and smiled. This was the real victory. Not that Ms. Whitmore had been punished. Not that policies had changed. The real victory was that students like Lisa now had hope. They had evidence that speaking up could make a difference. They had proof that their voices mattered. 1 year after graduation, Ji-won's cancer research reached a major milestone. Her team's work led to a new treatment that entered clinical trials. The early results were promising. If the trials succeeded, thousands of lives would be saved. When reporters asked her about her greatest achievement, everyone expected her to talk about her research. Instead, she said, My greatest achievement was surviving Hamilton Academy with my dignity intact. My research saves lives, but standing up to discrimination teaches people how to live with courage. Both matter. Both are important. 5 years later, Ji-won did win the Nobel Prize. At 24, she was the youngest winner ever. She stood on the stage in Stockholm, accepting the award in front of the King of Sweden and thousands of distinguished guests. In her acceptance speech, she talked about her research. But she also talked about Hamilton Academy. I learned 2 important lessons during high school, she said. First, the work we do can change the world. And second, how we treat people along the way matters just as much as what we accomplish. Science without humanity is empty. Achievement without compassion is meaningless. In the audience, her parents cried proud tears. Emma, now a successful investigative journalist, recorded every word. Mr. Chen, who had been invited as her special guest, smiled and nodded. And somewhere in a small apartment in another state, Ms. Whitmore watched the ceremony on television. She saw Ji-won accept the Nobel Prize. She saw the girl she had tried to destroy now celebrated by the entire world. And finally, after all these years, she understood. Ji-won's identity had never been a secret weapon. It had been her truth all along, and the real power had not come from her credentials or achievements. The real power had come from refusing to accept being treated as less than human. Ms. Whitmore turned off the television and sat in the dark. She had lost everything trying to keep someone down, and that person had risen anyway, lifting others up along the way. There was a lesson in that. But it was a lesson Ms. Whitmore had learned far too late. At Hamilton Academy, the school had continued to change. The Justice and Dignity Fund had helped 47 students afford everything they needed. The anonymous reporting system had caught and stopped 2 more teachers who showed bias. Student satisfaction surveys showed dramatic improvements, especially among scholarship students and students of color. In the main hallway, there was now a plaque. It read, "Every student deserves dignity. Every human deserves respect. Our worth is not determined by our circumstances but by how we treat each other. Let us always choose kindness." Below the plaque were the names of students who had suffered discrimination, including Jiwon Park. It was a reminder, a promise, a commitment to never forget and never repeat those mistakes. And every year on the first day of school, Dr. Wright would gather all the new students and tell them Jiwon's story. Not to celebrate Jiwon's achievements, but to remind them of something more important, that their worth as human beings was inherent, that they belonged, that they mattered, that basic human dignity was not something anyone had to earn. It was something everyone deserved, and that was the real lesson. The one that changed everything,